Hey, what's up YouTube? Lightsaber Samurai here, and I'm back again for another video. And this time I'm talking about something that I've mentioned before on the channel, but it never ceases to amaze me how many games out there that exist that everyone seems to hate but you, right? Like, everybody's got those kind of guilty pleasure games and games you kind of don't want to tell people that you like, for fear of, discrimination or whatever when it comes to that. So in this video, I picked out 5 more games that everyone seems to hate but me. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Okay, so yes, I know with the title it's a little bit of hyperbole. I know I'm not the only person that likes these games, but it's interesting because these games got critically panned upon their release, and they really just didn't entice the community that they were targeted for, as far as what type of gamers was gonna like these games. And the first one I've got is an interesting one on the PlayStation Vita, by the name of Drive Girls. Now this game, again, this was brought to us by Arc System Works here in America. It was developed by Tamsoft, who's the same developer of the Senran Kagura series. And in this, you play as a young girl named Lancier, who is trying to join this organization called ERT, I believe. It's kind of like a rescue team or rescue organization, like paramedics or something like that. She has an innate need to want to help people, and so actually the day of her exam, she actually misses her opportunity to take the exam, because in the opening scenes of the game, you're helping these other 3 girls, with their own separate problems. But once you finally get there, the instructor sees something in you, and so she allows you to take a makeup test of sorts, but it's not for the ERT or EMT, whatever it's called. It's for a organization, a combat organization called the Drive Girls, and their job is to beat back this this mechanical bug invasion of unknown origin that's plaguing the Sun Island where the game takes place. And so in it, the Drive Girls, as the game suggests, they have the ability to transform into automobiles just out of the fly. It's super wacky, it's super Japanesey, but that's that's where a lot of the hate comes from. A lot of it comes from the repetitive gameplay, which it is basically like a Dynasty Warrior style, just hack and slash. But you guys know me, and that's actually one of the genres that I like, as long as they give you enough moves and combos to pull off, which this game does. You've got a bunch of different gauges that you can fill up and go into a bunch of different modes. It's in the form of shifting gears, which again is appropriate considering the fact that they changed the automobiles. And so as you shift gears, you get access to different abilities and different techniques. And then once you fill up all your gauges, you can go into overdrive mode, which is where you pull off huge, high damaging combos meant to take out a lot of the tougher enemies in the games and the bosses. But yeah, again, you play as you start off as Lancier, and then you'll end up playing as a total of like 5 different combatants, and all of them have the ability to just transform into cars. And it's crazy because, I mean, the game, you could have totally had this game without that mechanic, but you can just transform to a car at will. If you're in automobile mode and you get hit, then you revert back to your human mode, but then you can just transform right back into car mode. There is no kind of penalty for leaving that mode, and there's really no requirement to transform into that mode. So you can basically do it whenever you want. It is nice to be able to move around the levels at at higher speeds, being an automobile, but for the most part you can really just crash into enemies and kind of do this Crash Bandicoot style spin attack. You can also drift into enemies and cause damage like that. All in all, it's by no means a great game. It's your middle of the road standard Japanese action RPG hack and slash game. There's a million games like it in the genre, and many of them do it better, but I don't know, like the panning that this game got, I didn't really understand it. It's definitely a mediocre game. and it does have a lot of things that I like about it, but it's by no means a bad game. So if you see Drive Girls and you see it cheap, definitely pick it up. Again, the Vita is a system where you really just don't see them out in the wild anymore, so you may want to get it for that reason alone, but if you do, you'll be pleasantly surprised by the game that's underneath. Okay, moving on to the second game on the list. This one is a game that I had beef with for a long time, as far as like why people didn't like it. This is Capcom's Devil May Cry 2, and again, I don't really understand where all the hate came from. Like the name suggests, the second game in the series. When Devil May Cry came out, it was critically acclaimed. It was, you know, a breath of fresh air to the action adventure, the hack and slash genre, and everybody was praising it. Devil May Cry 2 came out, and the creators definitely, I remember when this game was being developed, I was reading issues of PSM magazine, and the developers were talking about, we just want to make it as cool as possible and want to be able to do as many cool things as possible. I thought, oh, that's nice. At the time, wall running was the thing, and so a lot of action games, you had to have the wall running in it, and so it had that. But from what I understand, a lot of people panned this game's easy difficulty compared to the first game, and a lot of things like the camera controls and camera angles. You gotta understand, Devil May Cry started out as a Resident Evil game, and so the things like the fixed camera angles and all of that, like a lot of that was just holdovers from the Resident Evil design. So I didn't have a problem with the direction they took. They wanted to branch out into a different direction. And to be fair, a lot of the games in the Devil May Cry series abandoned the static screens and all of that for in exchange for more of an arena style combat system. So a lot of cool boss battles, a lot of cool weapons and all of that. If you see Devil May Cry 2, this PlayStation 2 copy of Devil May Cry 2 you can often find for less than $5, and there's definitely more than $5 worth of game in here. I play it on the Devil May Cry HD collection now that you can get on the PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4. Both versions are less than $25, so if you see either one, definitely pick them up. Okay, so the next game on the list is brought to us by Ubisoft and Genki, and this is a movie adaptation. And so, you know, what we think about most movie adaptations, they're pretty crap. And the same was said by most people about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Now, in a lot of ways, I can understand a lot of the criticisms this game got. The pacing in some respects was kind of funky. The combat, while I enjoyed it, it didn't age well, as it's missing a lot of more modern affinities that we enjoy in games with heavy combat, such as a lock-on system, for instance. But again, I thought that the game was pretty good. I was a huge fan of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the movie back in the day, and so when this came out, this was right up my alley. In this game, you follow Lee Mubai, Yu Shin, and even Dark Cloud Low, and play through the events of the story. You steal the Green Destiny sword, and it is also, it's the job of the crew to get it back. Lee Mubai, he sees potential in and your martial arts ability, and wants to take you under his wing, but you are not with that because you actually have a master who happens to be Jade Fox, the woman who killed his master many years ago. So with that, the story plays out, kind of like a Greek tragedy in that sense. But I mean, gameplay wise, it is your standard hack and slash game. You go through the levels and rack up a bunch of combos by using a various array of combat of kung fu moves. The interesting thing in this game to me was in the combat system itself, and particularly with the blocking. So in certain points when enemies will try to pull off combos, you can do what I believe they called active blocking, and so if you block every attack as they go through the sequence, and you kind of have to press the button at a certain time, you guys will pull off this kind of scripted, like choreographed, sequence where you're doing these deft blocks or dodges and they're trying to hit you. It's very cool, and pulling this off successfully will actually gain health back to you, so it's important that you get good at this skill right off the bat. Some attacks are more easier to counter than others. But in addition to that, once you weaken an enemy enough, you can grab them and pull off these kind of like super like finishers, and they all look cool. The game itself I thought was pretty flashy. The graphics looked really good at the time, but again, there are some elements to older action games that really just don't translate today. For instance, the camera in a lot of instances is absolute garbage. It sometimes acts like a camera that you can, swivel around and have follow you. Sometimes it's fixed, and then you really don't have control over when it switches back and forth. And even when you have full control of the camera, you don't really have full. I never felt like I had full control of the camera. The cameras in this game is absolutely atrocious. That being said, though, all in all, I think this is, if you can get past that, the bad camera angles, the lack of a lock-on button and things like that, it's still a pretty good action game. And this one is another game that commonly goes between $1 and $5. So I mean, it's definitely worth that if you see it, and you like action movies, and if you love the movie, definitely pick it up. If you like action movies or action games in general, I would say it's not bad for $5. Okay, jumping over to the original Xbox now, and keeping with movie adaptations, well, sort of. This one is brought to us by Atari and Shiny Entertainment. This is 2005's Enter the Matrix, and so this game came out on all major platforms when it dropped. This is the OG Xbox version here. This game, I said movie adaptation, kind of, because it does take place during the events of the second movie, but you don't play as Neo, Trinity, or even Morpheus. You're actually playing as Ghost and Nairobi, which were two secondary characters in that movie, and you're kind of playing through their story parallel to the events of the movie. So in this, one of the crews in the Matrix, they dropped off a message inside the Matrix that is basically warning about an attack on the last human city on Earth, and so you intercept this package, and you got to get the word out and prepare for this attack and everything, and you'll be going through the Matrix all the while. Now, this game definitely got panned, and rightly so, when it came out, for a lot of the bugs. This game just didn't spend enough time in the oven. It actually was delayed, as it was supposed to drop the same day as the Matrix Revelation came out in the theater, but it didn't make that date. Eventually, when they brought the Matrix Reloaded, I'm sorry, that's the second movie. When they brought the Matrix Reloaded to DVD, they rushed this game so it could release on the same day, and it was definitely not finished. There was a bunch of bugs in the graphics, poor textures, pop-in, audio sync issues, the works, and it plagued every version of the game. I've played all three versions. I think the Xbox version is slightly better compared to the others. In the graphics department, it's definitely the best, displaying 1080i graphics, and that was something that was rare in that era. I mean, this is the OG Xbox, the 6th generation, and so we were just getting jiggy with progressive scan and 480p. Like I said, this is an action game. The game is a lot of hand-to-hand combat and a lot of gunplay, and honestly, I think this is where the game shines. I really like the gameplay and the combat in this game, beating up enemies and being able to use focus pretty much anytime you want. It's a finite bar that drains, but like vampire health, it will go back up after a couple of seconds of non-use. So I never really had much of many instances where I was like, man, I'm out of focus, and so I can pretty much pull it off whenever you want. Of course, when you're using the focus meter, everything drops in the slow-mo, and while it's in slow-mo, you can pull off stronger variations of the moves you already can do, being able to dodge bullets and run up walls and throw people several feet, kick them back several feet, and pull out a gun and shoot them while they're still flying through the air. The bullet time was done really, really good in this game, in my opinion. At the time, we had games like Max Payne that had tried it when it came out. The Dead to Rights games was another one. True Crime Streets of LA had a little bit of it in there as well. But when The Matrix came out, The Matrix, showed everybody who's boss with the bullet time. In my opinion, I think it's still one of the games that does it the best, especially from that era. But like I said, it had a lot of buggy issues, but for me, there was nothing game breaking. I mean, I never had the game crash or freeze on me or anything like that. So, I mean, I was cool with it. And for the most part, I would say they were probably about 85% to 95% done with the game as they wanted it. If they had fixed up a lot of those buggy issues, this game would have been, an instant classic. As it was, a lot of people panned it, especially critics. Now, I will say the general public did take to this game more, and I do believe this game has gained a bit of a cult following over time, but since it was panned so hard when it came out, luckily for us though, that made it a cheap game. This is another game that you can find for $10 or less, and it's absolutely worth it. Enter the Matrix for me comes highly recommended. If you like the Matrix movies, if you're a fan of the universe, a lot of the cutscenes in this was live action scenes that they shot specifically for this video game. Actually, I think they shot somewhere like 60 minutes of additional footage specifically for this video game that cuts and intertwines with the Matrix Reloaded. And so, as a huge Matrix fan myself, that was right up my alley. So again, highly recommend it. If you haven't played Enter the Matrix yet, what are you doing? Definitely pick that one up. Okay, and the final game on the list, we're hopping back to the PlayStation. We're actually got to talk about a launch game on the PlayStation because we were super hype for the PlayStation 2. I remember when it dropped, but a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for this game, but when it came out, it left a lot to be desired. I am, of course, talking about Oni on the PlayStation 2 now, and this was interesting because this is brought to us by Rockstar. Yes, that Rockstar, and collaboration with Bungie. Yes, that Bungie. And so this is really cool because it was nice to see, them make different types of games. Now, they're known for just Halo or GTA, but, back in the day, they branched out into a bunch of different things. A lot of it didn't stick, but it was nice to see them doing something different. In this game, you play as a member of the Tech Crimes Task Force, I think it's called, Konako, who's definitely not the Major from Ghost in the Shell. She is out on a mission to take down the Syndicate, and so that's where many of the levels in this game takes place, and that's your main source of fodder throughout the game story. In this, they had an interesting blend of hand-to-hand combat and shooting games similar to the Enter the Matrix, but this again was early play. This is a launch title on the PlayStation, and so they didn't really have it all fleshed out yet. There was a lot of wonky controls in this one. I remember things like clicking the analog stick to pick up weapons and things like that. That being said, though, you had a lot of options in combat, which is to me something that I really enjoy about video games, especially when it comes to hack and slash or beat 'em up games. It's nice to be able to do a bunch of different things to keep the game from getting stale, and they definitely did that. I don't remember, the main thing that people had beef with was the controls, and I get it. It's a lot of weird stuff going on with the controls, but I mean, this was developers much earlier in their career, and working with new hardware for the first time and a new console. I mean, they were still just trying to figure it out, so I can give them some leeway for that. What we got, though, I thought was a pretty solid action game. The only other complaint I have with the game is with the game's level design, and a little bit with the art style. I'll talk about that in a second, but the level design was very generic. It takes place in these factories and warehouses, and there's just kind of open empty rooms. So they definitely could have done better with the level design. As far as the art style goes, the art style is very inconsistent. A lot of the cutscenes, even compared to the artwork on the box, and looking at some of the cutscenes, she looks like a completely different human being. Again, I think there was a short-lived anime, based around this game, and it's basically a Ghost in the Shell ripoff. you know, but in which we would eventually get a pretty decent Ghost in the Shell game and Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex a few years later. But you know, at the time we just had Oni to settle with. That being said, I really like Oni, despite its flaws. I mean, the combat system, I remember a lot of at the time they kept advertising that the combat system was easy to pick up, difficult to master, and so that was basically just saying, hey, look, man, we just threw a lot of crap at this game, you know, trying to see what sticks and what doesn't. Me personally, I thought the game was fine. This is a game you easily can find for like $2, you know, in your retro video game store. And again, these games aren't perfect, but this, you know, considering the super cheap prices, it's definitely worth picking them up if you see them. And Oni is definitely worth picking it up if you're a fan of the PlayStation 2. All right, guys, I do believe that's all I got for you, but let's talk about it in the comment section below. Questions, comments, concerns, threats. What are some other titles that no one seems to like but you? If you guys like this content, go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. You'll be glad you did. I do believe that's all I got for you. Lightsaber Samurai out. Peace.